Morning. Morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, Bill.
Good morning, TGIF.
Yep. There it is. Hey, good morning, Sarah.
Morning, Keith. How are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you.
Good. Morning, Chad. Morning, Lee. How are you doing?
I'm good, Keith. How are you?
Doing fine.
Great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Morning, Keith.
Hey, morning, Ramon. Hey, Shad, can we get a sound check, please? Oh, he's good. Morning, Chad.
Good morning, Keith.
Morning. Hey, Brett, it says on the participants list that you're with the city of Oviedo. Is that? That's not correct.
That's a brain. That's a Friday brain. I was just sending an email about something with the city of Oviedo, and my mind must have written that.
Oh, okay. I wondered if.
Because I have not moved.
Okay, I didn't think so.
There you go.
Yes. Morning, Nabil.
Good morning, Keith. How are you today?
Oh,
How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. It's Friday.
Great. And the weather's really nice.
yes.
Thanks for that, Keith. I appreciate it.
Sure. Good morning, Virginia.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Happy Friday.
Right to you. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Keith. Good morning.
Morning, Kelly.
Morning.
And morning, Crystal. Can we get a sound check?
Good morning.
Morning.
I hope we don't get into the trouble we ran into the TESMO committee with the echo there this morning. I don't know what happened.
Mr. Chairman, looks like it's 10 o'clock and we are recording, so you can begin the meeting whenever you're ready.
Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nabil Mohaisin. I'm with the city of Kissimmee, and I'll be chairing this meeting today. We also have a team of folks working to ensure that this meeting runs smoothly. Today's meeting was advertised on the MetroPlan Orlando website and social media, as well as through targeted emails. The Florida Sunshine Law requires a quorum to be physically present in a room during a government meeting. Governor DeSantis had suspended this requirement in an executive order, allowing government boards to conduct business using virtual meetings. As you know, this executive order, however, has expired back in October 31st. So this meeting will be consistent of our last December meeting, which will be held in a workshop format. Staff will be explaining a little bit more about that in a moment. We'll keep microphones muted unless you've been recognized to speak, and we'll use the raise hand function to participate in the discussion. There are two public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public who want to speak will use the raise hand feature found in the participants tab. If attending by phone, you can hit the *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and your contact information for the record. We also accepted comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for public comments are posted on metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings. We want this and all future online meetings to be accessible by all. Participant may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodation to participate in the future, please contact MetroPlan Orlando. At this point, and in light of what our nation has been going through, I'd like to start the meeting off with the asking you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Ms. Lee Bulham, the Vice Chair of the committee. Thank you.
If you wish to participate and are able to, please stand. And I did look it up. You do not have to actually have a flag present. So I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Bulham, and thanks everybody for your participation. Got a couple quick announcements. The first one is just to reflect on our transportation industry and what to expect in the future. I've been, trying to get some information and reading with all the changes in the administration and the potential of putting this pandemic behind us. And during a recent American Association of the State and Highway Transportation Officials meeting, a key member of the Biden administration team, Mr. John Procari, stated that the federal investments in the coming years are coming, and they see the federal role as a role that would aggregate the state priorities so that the states would work together on the transportation. In order to get the transportation industry back on its financial feet, the plan is to get transportation funding by funding basically shorter projects that are more reliable, with the main focus on the environmental aspects and the climate changes. So I thought that'll be something interesting for all to share with you. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Keith Caskey for the agenda review. Mr. Caskey.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members and everyone attending online. Thank you again for working with us as we conduct these virtual meetings. We appreciate your patience and understanding. And based on direction from our board at their December meeting, this meeting is being held as a virtual workshop in which action items that are being advanced to the MetroPlan Orlando board will be reviewed and discussed, but no formal action will be taken so that a quorum will not be required. The board's action on these items will be ratified at a future in-person TAC meeting, and this format, of course, is subject to change if the governor issues another executive order. So again, thank you for your flexibility during this time. As the chairman mentioned, we'll be using the raise hands feature to recognize committee members during the meeting and to call on members of the public during the comment time. If you have joined us on the phone only without the video screen, please use the *6 to mute and unmute your line, and please use *9 to raise your virtual hand so that the meeting host can see that you wish to be recognized. You will see that there is a chat feature on your toolbar, and this communicates with all the panelists in this meeting, which includes committee members, staff, and presenters. So please only use this if you are having technical issues or need assistance, and a full record of that chat comments will be included with the public record of this meeting. We do have a change on the agenda this morning. The discussion on project prioritization and performance-based planning under item C has been postponed to our February meeting so that all the TAC members that have an interest in that issue can be in attendance. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes my announcement this morning. Now we'd like to take attendance, and I'll ask Ms. Lisa Smith to call the roll for the record. Again, there are no action items, so we'll be able to move forward even if there is not a quorum present.
Good morning, committee members. Please go ahead and unmute yourselves now for the roll call. You can go on mute again after your name is called. Please make sure that your video is on if possible so that we can confirm that it's you. You will find the unmute and video buttons on the bottom left side of your toolbar. And when your name is called, please say here or present. Andre Anderson. Brett Blackadar.
Here.
Kelly Brock.
Here.
Christopher Cairns.
Here.
Michael Cash.
Present.
Gus Castro. Crystal
Here,
Clem.
sorry.
Okay, I got you, Gus. Crystal Clem.
Present.
Ashley Cornelison. Justin Eason.
Present.
Azam El Hassar.
Present.
Brad Friel. Commissioner Ed Gold.
Here.
Will Hawthorne.
Present.
Pam Richmond.
Present.
Conroy Jacobs.
Here.
John Dredge. Steve Krug.
Here.
Fred Milch. Mary Moskowitz.
Here.
Nabil Muhaisen.
Present.
Brian Sanders.
Here.
Miles O'Keefe.
Present.
Tawny O'Lore.
Present.
Tom Radzai.
Present.
Lee Pulliam.
Here.
Rachel Giranella. Ramon Sonorans.
Present.
Ian Saconia.
Here.
Chad Smith.
Present.
Matt Sudemeyer.
Here.
Alyssa Edie.
Present.
Sarah Walter.
Here.
Bill Wharton.
Here.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Lisa.
And for
we
the
will now
record, I see that Rachel Giranella, she is here.
Thank you, Lisa. We will now hear public comments on what we normally call action items. So this time we'll call them, due to the nature of this workshop, we'll call them items for review and discussion. Do we have people who want to speak to any of these items? If so, please use the raise hand function found at the bottom of your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone. You will see a button pop up that says the host wants to unmute you. Please accept that prompt to activate your microphone. And we ask that you provide your name and address for the record. Once you're recognized, please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands raised.
None. Have we received any written comments prior to the meeting?
No, we have not.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6 in our agenda this morning. And we have 3 presentations listed in today's agenda, one of which may have been postponed to February, as you heard from Mr. Caskey. So please use the raise hand function to be recognized if you want to ask a question. You may raise your hand during the presentation to indicate that you want to ask a question. However, we will hold all questions until the presentation ends. If you're having audio issues, you can type your question in the chat box and a moderator will relay your question to the group. The first presentation is the FY 2021-22 through the 2025-26 tentative 5-year work program. And it's based on Fdot's tentative 5 years program. Ms. Catherine Alexander will present this work program, and Mr. Ciosi Fine will also be co-presenting this presentation. Ms. Catherine, please proceed.
Thank you and good morning. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen.
We're unable to hear you very clearly.
All right, I'm going to bring you all in closer to me. So if I become very, high definition, it's because I'm right up to the camera. How's this?
I'm sorry, can everybody hear Ms. Alexander very, very clearly? Okay. I don't know if staff can help with that.
Testing.
So we can hear you
Okay. All right. I guess I have to yell. I'll apologize to my neighbors afterwards. All right. Well, thank you. Like I said, thank you for having us here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I will turn off the video just so we don't have any technical difficulties. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to put a face behind the name. Okay. Are you all able to see a presentation in the background?
No, we're not able to see that.
Okay, let's see. All right, you should be able to see it now.
Yes.
Now, let me go ahead and enter into, all right. I think I'm up and running now. All right, again, thank you and good morning. Today, I'm going to have the opportunity to share with you our tentative 5-year work program. And this is intended to represent fiscal years 21 through 22 through 25-26. And I'm also going to take the opportunity to highlight priority projects from the MetroPlan MPO region that have funding represented in the upcoming 5 years. All right, so the department's work program is a listing of transportation needs planned for the upcoming 5-year period. And this includes public transit, seaport, airport, and rail projects, as well as transportation planning, transportation systems management and operations, engineering and design, right-of-way acquisition and construction activities. Now, FDOT is not the lead agency for the aviation, seaport, spaceport, or transit projects. However, these projects are included in the district's work program as a result of coordination with the representative partners. Each district's upcoming 5-year needs are developed in collaboration with our local partners' priorities. And the needs across the state are compiled to form the department's tentative 5-year work program, which is then submitted to central office, legislature, and the governor for review and approval. We manage the work program on a fiscal year basis, with each year starting on July 1st and ending on June 30th. So for example, we're starting with fiscal year 22 in this tentative work program cycle. That runs from July 1st of 21 until June 30th of 2022. The type of projects that are represented in our work program include safety and security, any systems preservation and maintenance, as well as pedestrian and bicycle, multimodal enhancements, as well as operational and capacity improvements. And for our SIS corridors, our strategic intermodal systems, these projects are categorized based on MPO, TPO, and FDOT priorities. There are other activities that are also included in our work program, and these include safety studies, bridge inspection reports, as well as resurfacing and maintenance schedules, and also recommendations from planning studies, transit programs, and any other needs that may arise. What you're seeing here is a representation of the development of our tentative 5-year plan. The 5-year work program is based on legislative and governor approval in the spring of each year, and it subsequently becomes our adopted work program and it's implemented by the department on July 1st of each year. As you see, it consists of 4 common years and a 5th year. And year 1 is also referred to as the lockdown year, and this is due to budgetary purposes. In the case of any changes to this first year, it may require administrative amendment request to Tallahassee. As part of the district's work program development process, FDOT is continually developing a new 5th year for each cycle. And at the beginning of the cycle, there are the 5 years of the work program. Once the new 5th year has been developed, the other 4 years shift over to the left and the new 5th year is added and the cycle then resets. So then that first year then becomes your upcoming lockdown, and years 2 to 5 are set for programming purposes. So a lot of effort goes into putting together our tentative work program in collaboration with many of our local partners. And although that effort does go into place and we try to make it as concrete as possible, it is always subject to change. So once the tentative 5-year plan is approved and adopted on July 1st, the cycle repeats itself, and then we go into development mode of the upcoming 5-year tentative work program. So in essence, the tentative work program means the 5-year listing of transportation projects planned for each of the fiscal years. And what we're looking at now is what you see here, fiscal years 22 through 26. And this will be tentative until it is adopted on July 1st. This represents the activities that took place in this last work program cycle in order to set our tentative work program for fiscal years 22 to 26. You can see the work program development began in July. This is also the time where the MPO submitted the priority list to the department. On July, we're also beginning to identify all of the district needs as well as the priorities that have been submitted and compiling and start to developing the plan. This year, the Revenue Estimating Conference was held in August 2020, and this conference is where the state evaluates how much revenue has been collected by the state for the current year. And then the state uses this data to forecast the future revenues, which is going to help determine how much money each FDOT district will potentially have to fund the work program. This year, there happened to be a follow-up revenue estimating conference that was held on December 9th that was specific to transportation revenue. So through the summer and fall, what you see highlighted there in the orange, is where the coordination took place within the district and with our local partners to review the priority list and determine which projects should be considered for programming in the upcoming 5 years. At the release of the revenue forecast, the district is faced with balancing the needs and priorities against the projected allocations and revenues. This year, we were faced with the challenge that there were anticipated reductions of revenue to a tune of $1.4 billion statewide. So that was a significant challenge for us. And not only do you have to face that shortfall, but you also have to balance that effort, including any programs in target areas, making sure that those are met as well. And that could include resurfacing lane miles as well as our bridge maintenance programs. So due to those projected revenue losses and economic impacts of the pandemic, the allocations that were needed to balance that plan were provided later than usual for this cycle. Usually we receive these in September. This year we actually had notification of what they would be in November. So that delay caused us to push out the finalizing of the tentative 5-year work program right up against the snapshot date of December 18th of 2020. And that is the information that was used for a virtual public hearing, which was held last week between Monday and Friday, January 11th to the 15th. The district is providing the public a 2 weeks turnaround to submit any comments from the information that was shared at that virtual public hearing. And that will be included in the public record. And the deadline for the public comments is January 29th of 2021. As well as the public deadline, we have a February 12th deadline for any comments, any written objections from the MPO. Again, that's February 12th, as we have noticed there. The Florida Transportation Commission will hold a public hearing or workshop. That date is yet to be determined. At that point, central office will then submit the preliminary tentative work program to Executive Office of the Governor, and which occurs after the FTC Commission hearing and 14 days prior to the 2021 session. So the 2021 state legislation begins March 2nd and ends on April 30th. Once all these activities take place, our tentative work program for fiscal years 22 to 26 will become adopted and becomes the official work program beginning July 1st of 2021. Talking about some of those impacts, the negative funding impacts that we received, it's no surprise to any of us for sure that, it did create challenges on how we can meet all the needs that were identified. What contributed to some of those reductions? It's obviously the revenue forecast and the projections are lower than expected. And this is due to we're seeing further advances in fuel efficiency and electric vehicles on roadways, which is impacting that revenue stream. We're also seeing the decrease in consumption of motor fuel and others that could be diesel or aviation, which is lowering those associated expectations in the future as well. There's obviously an increase in remote and teleworking, which means less commuters, less people on the road, and that's impacting the gas tax that's collected, reduced tolls. And then there's alternate modes of transportation that's taking place. That's also impacting some of those projected revenues. The right-of-way costs are also increasing. Statewide, we're seeing 7.1 average of an increase for real estate. And then obviously we had the pandemic economic impacts, in particular to tourism, which is significant to Florida and our Central Florida region. So with the travel restrictions, event and venue cancellations, as well as limited attendance due to social distancing capacity restrictions, it's creating less income from the sales tax, hotel surcharges, or rental car surcharges due to less people visiting Florida. At the district level, what we experienced was $100 million shortfall in reductions between fiscal years 21, which is the current year, through 25. And that included state and federal monies. The biggest amount was in the current year. So for fiscal year 21, we were looking at a shortfall of $80 million, but there was additional shortfalls in 4 of the upcoming 5 years. So our strategy to address this was, to prioritize what we needed to do in order so we can address what our commitments are. We wanted to preserve to the maximum extent possible any ongoing executed contracts that we had. And we also wanted to fulfill our debt service payments. And then in addition, we wanted to ensure that planned safety projects were still being fulfilled and our preservation and maintenance related projects were also being considered. So that leaves, how can we offset that difference? And then we have to look at projects ultimately. But in lieu of impacting projects significantly, what we wanted to do is if either we could reduce the funding or maybe defer or delay, minimize those impacts, but actually try to absorb much of the deficit by reducing our own district contracts. And that includes any district-wide design services, continuing services, that we have here in the district, as well as our general engineering consultant contracts. And we did just that. We did reduce all those contracts across the board. If we had to impact any project, we looked at ways to minimize this, either adjusted the funding across years or limited the years of deferrals to maybe 1 or 2 at the most. This is a breakout of the yearly funding allocated to Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. And this is for the upcoming 5 years of the tentative work program. Overall, our tentative plan is about $4.5 billion, of which for Orange County, we have about $447 million. It's programmed for the upcoming 5. For Osceola, a little close to $266 million, and for Seminole, close to $209 million, for a total of a little bit over $2 billion across the 3 counties in the upcoming 5 years. Here's a breakdown of funding in relation to project types. And this is also, again, broken down for Orange, Osceola, and Seminole with your totals to the right for each of those. For safety projects, we're talking about safety, lighting, urban corridor improvements, intersection improvements, passing lanes, roundabouts. Capacity, widening, new road construction, interchanges, and I-4 improvements. Preservation, this would be resurfacing, bridge replacement, maintenance. Multimodal, transit, rail, car, ride share, and aviation. And that's also that within that we have links projects that are included for Orange County, as well as the International Airport Terminal Complex. In Osceola, we have runway and taxiway rehabilitation for the Osceola Kissimmee Airport. And in Seminole, we have the Orlando Sanford International Airport taxiway improvements, as well as airport parking. That also includes the biped projects, operations, and miscellaneous, which includes maintenance, planning, PD&E studies, drainage, landscaping, and studies. All right, so at this time, what I'd like to do is just highlight projects and they have funding represented in the upcoming tentative 5-year plan, again, fiscal years 22 to 26. And we're gonna go ahead and start off with Orange County. And here we have a 242484-8 widening project. This would be I-4 starting east of Osceola Parkway, taking it west of 528, where we have right-of-way funds programmed. Then we have the extension from I-4, 528 to Kirkland. Again, continuation of the widening and managed lanes. And this is with design and right-of-way, and the tentative work program that we have funding there is a little bit over 28 million. For Colonial Drive, 239203-7, this is from Old Cheney Highway to Chuluota Road. Construction, we have planned for fiscal year 24, see a little bit along with CEI. Continuing on Colonial, we have Colonial Drive from Chuluota Road to State Road 520, construction in fiscal year 25. Miscellaneous construction project. This is Virginia Drive, Forest Avenue, Corrine Drive, and this is from Orange Avenue to Bennett. Here we have design in fiscal year 24 with construction plan for fiscal year 26. We have traffic signal cabinets upgrade in Orange County. Design for this is planned for next year, 22, construction and CEI in 25. Following in Orange County, we have the UPS. This is interruptible power systems expansion phase 1 project with design in 22 and construction in 24. Smart Orlando Downtown Advanced Traffic Operations Performance, which is an arterial traffic management project, design, construction, operations. This is all set for fiscal year 22. The Sandsburg Trail, a bike path trail project. This project is planned for design in 22 and construction in 24 from this trails from Keller Road to Maitland Avenue. And then another bike path trail project. And this one is from, let's say, the Shingle Creek Kirkman Trail from Old Winter Garden to Riley Street. And this one's construction 25. Another bike path trail for the Little Econ Trail Phase 3 from Baldwin Park to Richard Carty Parkway. Design in 22, there's right of way in fiscal year 24, and then construction following in fiscal year 26. And then moving on to Osceola County. We have capacity improvement jobs as a project for State Road 535 from US 192 to 536. Design is beginning in 26. Another capacity improvement for US 1792 from County Road 54 to west of Poinciana Boulevard. And we have design planned for 26 with funding in the work program for that. A quadrant roadway, this is the interim improvement, and this is for State Road 600 US 1792, Pleasant Hill to Portage. This is right away. We have funding in the upcoming 5 years for fiscal years 22 through 26. Corridor improvements along Central Avenue. Design is slated for fiscal year 25. And then we have an arterial traffic management phase 6 project with construction planned for fiscal year 25 along Boggy Creek Road from Simpson Road to Narcoossee Road. An ITS communication systems project for design in fiscal year 24 and along Osceola Parkway, beginning at Dyer Boulevard, taking it to Florida's Turnpike. Another traffic improvements, traffic signals project with design in fiscal year 23, the construction for that and CEI plan for fiscal year 25, and this is along Buenaventura Boulevard from Florida Parkway to East Osceola Parkway. And then we have the sidewalk project, sidewalk gaps. This is a Safe Routes to School project. Construction and CEI is planned for fiscal year 22. This is along the Bella Lago Academy. Another sidewalk along Deerwood Elementary School, also Safe Routes to School. The construction for this and CEI is fiscal year 22. And now to represent Seminole County. Back to capacity, we have the I-4. This would be from State Road 434 to the State Road 15. We have design for fiscal year 25, and right away has representation in the tentative work program from fiscal years 22 to 26. Miscellaneous construction, this is along East Church Avenue, beginning at County Road 427 to US 1792. It's a complete streets project. This one has construction and CEI planned for fiscal year 25. Another complete streets improvement along Orange Boulevard from State Road 46 to Monroe Road with construction in 26. Another Warren Avenue, from State Road 434 to Millwee Street. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Design in fiscal year 25. Bike path tail project along Central Castleberry connectivity improvements. This is Hibiscus Road to Marigold. We have construction and CEI planned in fiscal year 25. Spring Lake Trail from North Lake Boulevard to Oakland Road, another bike path trail improvement project, construction in fiscal year 25. And that concludes the information on the projects that we have represented, the funding that we have represented on projects for our tentative work program. I did mention that we had to make the tough call on some of the projects. What you see here are deferrals that were made for Orange County. There were 2 projects The first one was 436-433-1, was Orange County Gap Segment 2 from Hiawassee Road to north of State Road 414. The construction on that was deferred from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 26. That was also made because of adjustments to the Sunshine funding. And then we had 437-131-1. This is a drainage improvement project along State Road, along Colonial Boulevard from Irvington Avenue to McGuire Boulevard. That was just deferred from fiscal year 22 to 23 to allow some additional time to analyze that flooding. For Seminole County, we had one project that was deferred. This was 239-422-1 to State Road 434. From State Road 424 Edgewater Drive to Seminole County line. The construction on this was deferred from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23 to help us out with balancing the program. And that does conclude my presentation. Thank you again for having us here and the opportunity to be able to share this information with you. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing and I'll turn on the video and I'll accept any questions or any comments.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander, for the very informative presentation. I see that Mr. Assar has a question for you. Go ahead, Mr. Hazen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Catherine regarding the UPS cabinets project in Orange County. Is that for the city of Orlando?
I couldn't tell you specifically who it's with. I will have to confirm that for you.
Yes.
So, thank you. Yes, it is for City of Orlando.
Any other questions for Ms. Alexander? Hearing none, I'm going to have.
Oh, I had a question. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
Can you please state your name and who is this?
Yeah, hi. This is Ian Sacconian with the City of Orlando. I just had a question about the little econ trail that you showed at Baldwin Park. Is that a Orange County project or City of Orlando? Is that about the overpass?
Let me see. I'm trying to get back.
Because I don't remember applying for that one, so that's why I'm asking.
I can jump in here for you, Catherine, if you need. This is Nick Lepp. Ian, yes, that's an Orange County project, and that is the overpass.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, Nick.
Any other questions for Ms. Alexander?
I did have a question. This is Shad Smith, City of Longwood.
Hello, Chad. Go ahead.
My question just was, I looked at the funding, and this is probably more for Nick, and it seemed like Seminole County was much lower than I thought we would be by our percentage of population. And I was kind of wondering about that in general, all of the county.
I can take a look at that, but one thing that we were going to discuss at the meeting today, but we'll postpone until next, in the performance-based planning is we're not doing the fair share as we're identifying the projects for programming. We're using the performance-based planning rankings and as they were coming up. And that's just for our TMA funds as we're looking for programming. The rest of the pot of federal and state, DOT, I guess they have statutes and rules that they have to follow in programming, but I'd have to look deeper into that to give you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your input, Nick. Any other questions for Ms. Alexander? All right, I have a couple questions, Ms. Alexander. Oh, okay, we have one.
Yes, hi, this is Rachel Giranella from the city of.
Go ahead, Ms. Giranella. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, proceed, please. And we can't hear you again. Ms. Giranella, you there? All right.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I apologize. I was in touch with Mr. Ty Garner. He's a project manager at Fdot for a project that's on State Road 419 from south of US 1792 to State Road 434. And it shows that there's some improvements on sidewalks and lighting for pedestrians to meet with the ADA standards. I wanted to know, it looks like the project start date would be this July of 2021. And I was just wondering if that was on your list, Catherine.
Looks like, is that a new project that is starting out, you said?
Yes, it is a financial project ID number 441019-1, and I could email you the details.
Yeah, if you could, I'd appreciate it. If it's not on the list, maybe it's an ongoing project. I would have to research it, to be honest with you. And I see Anna has her hand raised. Anna may have some information on that as well.
Okay, thank you. It looks like it was scheduled to begin this year of 2021.
I can find out some more details back to you. Have anything else you want to add?
Okay, anyone else? All right, Ms. Alexandra, I have a couple questions for you, if I may. The first one is in regards to modification to the plan. At what point are modifications completely out of the questions? The question, rather.
Well, I can't say that there's ever anything that's completely out of the questions.
Okay.
We developed a plan, and so right now we're currently locked out of work programs. So the only opportunity we'll have to be able to make any adjustments will be here in the spring, and it'll be only for the first year, and it's only updates of estimates for right-of-way and construction for that first year lockdown. So once it becomes adopted, then we have the opportunity to go back and make adjustments to any of the later years, fiscal years 2 to 5, which will then become part of those changes to the upcoming tentative. Any changes to that first year, though, are still available, but they do require, like I mentioned, a possibly administrative work program amendment request to Tallahassee.
Okay, so it's pretty dynamic. That's good. I was curious, and I don't know if you have this number, but how does this total funding for the 2021 compare, or this 5-year program compared to the last 5-year program?
Last year, we were running at about $5 billion, if I'm not mistaken, for the overall work program. This year, we're about $4.5 billion. Now, there's a lot of fluidity on what numbers represent that, but there's definitely a reduction from the previous work program to this one.
Okay, great. And do you have a report or just a simple, perhaps answer on the projects completed last year in our area?
Completed as in taken to construction?
Yes.
You would like a report of that? I don't have one readily available, but if you need it, I could get you information on projects that had completed construction.
With the group as well. And the last comment or question I have is, once the program, once the budget is funded and those projects are approved to proceed forward, in light of what had happened last year, is there typically any kind of a backup funding that put aside for things like that, or do you leave that entirely up to other agencies to intervene and help out in cases of lack of funding in the middle of the project?
There's definitely the opportunity to discuss what the funding options are. The work program is built with contingencies that are available within the funding and the budget categories. So in case there's any estimate increase or any changes, we can address that from the contingency amount. Mm-hmm. However, with coordination with the MPO or with the locals, we would have to see, sometimes the funding is specific to a certain program. And it could be Safe Routes to School, or it could be some other type of funding program. So we would have to get creative to see what funding could be used to be able to absorb that shortfall. It's a possibility that there may not be the opportunity to be able to swap funds between the different programs, in which case then we'd have to get even more creative on how to find that.
which is,
There is contingency built in, and then we would have to work with the MPO to try to determine, hey, where would that funding come from?
so with the help of contingency, we all get creative like if DOT would. So that's good to know. If I may, and if you're able to share this presentation at this point, I would appreciate sharing that with the group if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we sent it over yesterday afternoon, so it is available. We can also share it with everybody, but I think we did send it over to a representative from MetroPlan.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Great presentation. And now we'll move on to the second part of the presentation with Mr. Siaso Fine. Mr. Fine.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Siaso Fine, and I'm here to highlight the Turnpike's tentative work program for fiscal years 2022 through fiscal years 2026. As you can see, for the MetroPlan Orlando area, we have $830 million programmed for the next 5 years. So for the MetroPlan Orlando area, there is about 32 miles of resurfacing projects programmed for the next 5 years. Roads that will see resurfacings include the Turnpike main line for 2 segments, and the Western Beltway portions in Orange and Osceola County, and the Seminole Expressway. Next slide. For Osceola County, there are 4 projects in the tentative work program, and they are project 443879-1, Canoe Creek Service Plaza parking improvements. And this project basically expands passenger car and truck parking at the Canoe Creek Service Plaza. The proposed concept will add northbound and southbound passenger car spaces, truck parking spaces, and tandem truck parking spaces. The number of additional parking spaces and other details will be confirmed during the design phase of the project. And construction is programmed for fiscal year 2022, with the majority of the funds in fiscal year 2026. The next project is project 441224-2-4, which widens the Turnpike main line from Kissimmee Park Road to US 192 with a full interchange at Nolte Road, replacing the existing partial interchange at Kissimmee Park Road. This project will increase the number of travel lanes from 4 to 8 with a closed median and provide operational and safety improvements. Work includes the removal of the existing Kissimmee Park Road partial interchange and construction of a full access diverging diamond interchange at Nolte Road. Work also includes extending Nolte Road approximately 1/2 mile from its existing intersection with Old Canoe Creek Road to create this new interchange. We'll also be adding dual bridges to span over the Turnpike main line, as well as improvements to Old Canoe Creek Road to accommodate turning movements. And the design build for this project is programmed for fiscal year 2024. And the funds that you see in fiscal year 2022, it's only $4,000, and those are more administrative in nature. So the next project is project 436194-1, which widens the Turnpike main line from Parton Settlement Road to Osceola Parkway. And this increases the number of travel lanes from 4 to 8. With construction in this project is programmed in fiscal year 2022. And the final project for Osceola County is project 444329-1, which is interchange improvements on the Western Beltway at I-4. The project adds lanes to the existing ramps at the interchange of the Western Beltway at I-4, and also adds auxiliary lanes along I-4 from County Road 532 to the Western Beltway. The project goes with project 443958-1 which is the widening of I-4 from the Polk Osceola County line to west of the Southern Connector extension. Both projects are being managed by Fdot District 5 and are partially funded by the Turnpike. Construction for this project is funded for fiscal year 2022. For Orange County, next slide, please. For Orange County, there is one major project for the tentative work program, and it is project 43663. What is this? -1, I can't see the rest of the number, which constructs the new interchange on the Turnpike main line at Sand Lake Road. This will construct a new full interchange. Work includes the reconstruction of the Sand Lake Road bridges spanning over the Turnpike main line, turn lane improvements at the Sand Lake Road and President's Drive intersection, and new sidewalks along both Sand Lake Road from John Young Parkway to President's Drive. Tolls will be collected on both the southbound off-ramp and northbound on-ramp with the new AET feature, which is all electronic tolling. Construction is programmed for fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. For Seminole County, there is one major project in the tentative work program, and is project 417545-1, which widens the Seminole Expressway from Aloma Avenue to State Road 434. And the travel lanes will increase from 4 to 8. Work includes pavement widening, milling and resurfacing, operational improvements, and noise walls and interchange improvements at Aloma Avenue, Red Bug Lake Road, and State Road 434. Design build is programmed for fiscal year 2024. And that will conclude my presentation. If there are any questions or concerns, I'm happy to take them now.
Thank you, Mr. Fine, for an informative presentation. Do we have any questions for Mr. Fine? Please remember to use the raise hand button if you have any. I see a hand raised by Anna Taylor. Go ahead, Ms. Taylor, you've been recognized.
Thank you.
Anna, you're muted.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. This is Anna Taylor from District 5. I just wanted to follow up on the previous presentation and some of the comments made. The question about the Seminole County project that's going to be letting in July, that's a current year project, so the tentative work program wouldn't reflect what's going to be currently going into construction. This is looking at the next fiscal year. And then to follow up on the construction report of our completed construction, in your packets, we do have an FDOT construction report. We recently made some changes to that to better explain the construction that's currently ongoing. If you guys would like to see in addition of the completed projects, we can absolutely add that to the report.
I think that would be very helpful, Ms. Taylor. If you can do that in the future, that would be great.
Thank you.
As a comparison point, so we can calibrate and see how far we have progressed. Any other questions for Mr. Siassi? Fine. All right. The next presentation is going to be by Ms. Whittington, Virginia Whittington with MetroPlan staff, and it is about the Florida Sunshine Law training update. So Ms. Whittington, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. And thank you to those of you who were in the TSMO meeting earlier and you've stayed over to receive this presentation. Mr. Chairman and members, this is more of a refresher or a reminder than it is an actual training. We are obligated every year to present this to you all so that you would be able to function in your capacity as members of this committee, knowing what is required of you. And so next slide, please. I'll just share with you that the Florida Sunshine Law is broken basically into 3 requirements. And these are the 3 that MetroPlan Orlando is primarily responsible for. And that is that all meetings that are held by our organization must be open to the public and accessible to the public. And that we must give reasonable notice of those meetings, of when they will happen, where they will happen, and how the public is able to engage in those meetings. And then thirdly, meeting minutes or highlights of those meetings are required to be kept on record. Next slide, please. And so the question becomes, well, what constitutes a meeting? Florida Statute 286.011 defines a meeting as any board or commission or state agency that holds the authority to take official actions. And so those meetings that are held where official actions are taken are considered public meetings, and we must meet those 3 basic requirements just mentioned when holding those meetings. And so we look at this definition and you wonder if this applies to advisory committees, because this says boards, commissions, or state agencies. So if you'll go to the next slide, please. The statute also outlines that advisory committees that are created by those boards or public agencies are subject to sunshine. And so that brings all of the members of this committee and all of the MetroPlan Orlando board and advisory committees under the sunshine law. This would include any task forces, subcommittees, or committees of the MetroPlan Orlando board or committees. And so those members then have an obligation. Next slide. And those obligations are that when 2 or more members are gathered or discussing topics that may foreseeably come before your body and ultimately the MetroPlan Orlando board, you are not to be having those deliberations without those meetings being subject to the aforementioned 3 requirements of posting, being posted, being accessible, and having a record of those meetings. So what that means is that there cannot be a meeting between 2 of the committee members who serve on the TAC, the TSMO, or in the event of the other boards and committees that MetroPlan Orlando houses. And this also extends to phone conversations, emails, text messages, social media, chat that you may have even in these meetings that are virtual are subject to sunshine. So any other form of written communication. From time to time, you'll receive emails from MetroPlan Orlando that may have all of the recipients exposed. If you respond to that by replying to all, if that has not, that comes under the purview of other written communication. So be careful when responding to those emails as well. Our staff has tried to be very careful not to send those to you with all of the recipients exposed so that you don't fall into that. The other requirement is that members must declare a conflict of interest. You must let us know if there's any reason that you are unable to participate and fulfill your appointment, or if there's a conflict of interest with any project or any issue that is coming before the board. And this also extends to conflicts that may arise from community activities as well. Professional organizations that 2 or more members serve on. Now, does this mean that you cannot talk to one another? Absolutely not. What it means is that you cannot talk to one another about items that may foreseeably come before the MetroPlan Orlando board, your advisory committee, for action. And so with that, we present this today as a reminder. I purposely did not note in this presentation that there are civil penalties and fines that are associated with those who may violate. If someone calls foul ball and they decide they want to pursue some action, and it does happen, but just to let you know that there are penalties that could very well be imposed. And we try to keep you honest, because if we are called to testify, we will put up our right hand and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So we want to try and keep you all aware and informed. So with that, Mr. Chairman, next slide. That is a quick, just a reminder, and I'm happy to answer any questions that this committee may have.
Excellent. Thanks for the reminder, Ms. Whittington. And I'm looking for any hands if anybody has any questions for Virginia. All right. Seeing none.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are welcome. Thank you. Seeing none, we will, as you've heard earlier, we will be skipping or postponing the project prioritization performance-based planning by Mr. Nick Lepp for next meeting in February. And this would take us at this point to the items for review. And these are what we used to call action items for lack of a quorum. At this point, we will go through them. The first item is the review of a December 4th, 2020 meeting minutes. I hope you had a chance to take a look at that and review them. And if you have any corrections or comments you'd like to add, you may proceed at this point with your comments or corrections. And you'll find this minutes under tab 1. Anybody has any corrections or comments on the minutes from last month? All right, as a reminder, we will be, these minutes will be brought back for a formal approval at a future in-person meeting. The next item is the FDOT amendment to the FY 2021-24-25 TIP, and this is found under tab 2 of your information package, and Mr. Keith Caskey will be presenting that. Mr. Caskey.
Okay, well, this amendment includes increasing the funding for the railroad utilities and construction phases for the interchange improvement at I-4 and Sand Lake Road. And this additional funding is needed mainly because of expanding the scope of the project and also the increased cost of bridge construction and building materials and so on. And you all have the information on this amendment in tab 2 in your packets. So with that, I will open up the question.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion or are there any questions for Mr. Caskey? All right, thanks again. Moving on to our third item is the annual review of the FDOT performance measures and links transit assets. And I think that has been pushed away. Or no, Nick, you're going to be presenting that, right?
Yes, we will be. We still need to go through this item. Thank you.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. So as our chair mentioned, this is our annual review of our performance measures and targets to be applied for this year in the performance-based planning prioritization process. First introduced in MAP 21 and then continued into the FAST Act is the requirement to do data-driven performance planning using performance measures to identify and show significant support in assessing transportation needs. Next slide, please. Now, there's two ways that we can structure this program and develop these performance measures. We can support the Department of Transportation's targets, or we can develop targets on our own. There's two ways. If we support the department's targets, they will actually provide the data and the information necessary for us to produce our performance monitoring report and also provide that information to the department. If we set our own targets, the department again will be developing their numbers based on their targets, and we would have to develop the data and performance measures based on targets that we adopt if they are different than the states. Next slide, please. Last year, I presented 5 federal performance measures. Now we have 6 federal performance measures. The first one that we're going to go through is safety, which includes the number and rate of fatalities, as well as the number and rate of serious injuries, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Next slide, please. The state has a target of Vision Zero, which MetroPlan Orlando supports. We have had a Vision Zero emphasis within our planning products, and it is one of the board emphasis areas also. So we are looking to continue to support that Vision Zero target, meaning 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries on our system. Next slide, please. The second performance measure are bridge and pavement conditions, and this is to preserve the system, as Catherine already mentioned, and within the work program, that's a major focus of the Department of Transportation. So we continue to support the department's targets on bridge and pavement condition, making sure that a certain percentage is in good and a very low percentage is in poor for both bridge and pavement. Next slide, please. Travel time reliability is our measure of congestion. Though it does not eliminate congestion, I've used this term in the past. This is how consistent or reliable is that congestion. In our terms of measurement, we're looking to make sure that our interstate is between 75 and 70% reliable. That could still mean congested, but congested during those same periods throughout the year, every day. And then our non-interstate and freight is 50%, with our freight reliability having a factor of only 2, meaning 2 times longer. Next slide, please. Continuing with the same 5, we have the Transit Asset Management Plan. This is to help support Lynx's asset to maintain their public transportation system. And that's with the rolling stock and the equipment, making sure the buses have sufficient life and there's enough buses to operate the system as it is today. And that's with also the equipment and facilities to operate Lynx. Next slide, please. And this is a new target that was instituted last year by FTA. We're looking at public transit safety targets that Lynx required to adopt, and we support those. Though a little different than our safety target on the highway system, we do both agree, Lynx and MetroPlan, that a target of 0 fatalities is appropriate for the region. However, injuries is a little different when you're dealing with public transit. The number of injuries also include possibly trips and falls on buses or even at a bus stop. So having a 0 target was an unrealistic or unachievable target for Lynx. So they adopted a 2.48 target for injuries, as well as some preventable accidents and their system reliability. So with that, we're going to be presenting this to the rest of the committees and look for the board to adopt the support of the Florida Department of Transportation and Lynx targets for this fiscal year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Nick. Great refresher there. Anybody has any questions for Mr. Lepp? If not, a quick question, Nick, where does that 2.4 measure that has been adopted for the Lynx or the mass transit systems come from?
I will defer to Lynx, but I'll tell you it's probably based on their last few years of data and reports that they've had. But Lynx, Miles, I think I saw you there if you want to add anything on top of that.
Hi, Miles O'Keefe with Lynx. Nick, and all, I don't know the specifics of that number as well, but I can look it up. But to Nick's thought, I would have to agree it probably is based off of just some averages from the past few years. Absolutely. But I'll get back to you all and make sure that it's sent out.
No worries. Thank you very much for the input, and thank you, Nick. We will hear Miss Virginia Whittington again now, and she'll be reporting on the board legislative priorities. Miss Whittington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, good morning. I'm going to present a brief overview of the 2021 legislative priorities and positions of the MetroPlan Orlando Board. Typically each year, the board adopts a set of legislative priorities, and you'll find the draft in your agenda packet at tab 4. And just for those who may not be familiar with this process, our legislative priorities fall into 2 broad categories of safety and funding. And then we use 3 approaches during the session to advance these priorities. And as I did with the TSMO, I'd also like to share with you all using sports analogies. Those top priorities are those that we are actively engaged in. We're in the game, we're on the field, we are working with our legislators and our our lobbying team in Tallahassee to advance those during the session. The second tier are those those changes or legislation that we support. Someone else has taken the lead on, and we are standing on the sideline cheering them on, hoping that they get a win, because if they win, we win. Most of those priorities that you'll find under the support label are those legislative actions that are of the MPOAC. They have statewide implication, and we have signed on in support of them. And then the last label there is those that we monitor, and those are the legislative actions that may come in a last minute rush, and we find out about them, and we monitor any activity. It's kind of like that huddle. We come back together, we talk about it, we present it to our board, and we get direction as they move through the process. Next slide, please. So really briefly, our top priorities for 2021 that's being proposed to the MetroPlan Orlando board are the same two as last year. And again, you may find that many of these priorities you have seen before. There are times that it takes multiple years to get traction and to bring those items to the attention of our legislators, as there are sometimes disruptors that happen, as has happened in previous years. But this year we are actively working to secure additional funding to expand the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program. We are cognizant of the challenges that the legislators will be dealing with, having to do with some of the budgetary constraints, and are rebounding after this year's COVID pandemic. But we will be seeking to receive a sponsor in the House and Senate that would seek an appropriation that would match what MetroPlan Orlando gives to Bike Walk Central Florida each year in an effort to expand this program. Secondly, our top priority is to change the existing law to add bicyclists into the move over law. This would categorize bicyclists as vulnerable road users. And there is already a bill that has been filed by Senator Baxter, Senate Bill 278, it creates a Vulnerable Road Users Act. And so cyclists, we are hopeful, will be among those who are defined as vulnerable road users. Going to those items that we support, we oftentimes take a posture of protecting our transportation trust fund and the Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund. Again, this is going to be a difficult year given the revenue projections that we have. And oftentimes, the State Trust Fund for Transportation and TV are seen as those items, as those areas where they might be able to realign or reposition funding. And so we want to make sure that we continue to share with our legislators the importance of transportation to our economy. In fact, transportation is economic development. We're also seeking flexible and predictable funding for transit projects. And what we mean by this and the next one is we're seeking those options that would allow for flexibility of uses of those tools that we already have in our toolkit. Some of our local taxes have restrictions in terms of being able to be used only for capital. And we are seeking flexibility to also be able to use those for operations. And again, these are rollovers from last year. We'll go to the next slide, please. The first three of those I just went over, and the last three also deals with the ability of using funds in a different way. Next slide. This next one on the support list is a new item that we have added in response to our use of virtual meetings through the pandemic. We're seeking and supporting adding a provision to the Florida Sunshine Law that you just heard about that would allow for local governments to hold virtual meetings. The MPOAC is proposing this as during declared states of emergencies and 90 days beyond. And we are really supportive of being able to get a change to this law, as we have seen some of the highest participation of our members as well as of the public who have been able to access our meetings. And this is the same commentary that we're hearing around the state. So any support that we can lend to being able to have this as an option would be favorable to all of us. And now going to the 3 huddle items. Previously, there has been legislation filed that would further regulate distracted driving, complete hands-free, or no use of any electronic communication devices in your vehicles. There is a House bill already filed, House Bill 6009, that is applicable to this particular legislation. And with the next one that repeals red light camera legislation, House Bill 91 has been filed that is seeking to repeal that. And then last year, there was a late breaking. We heard about it early, but it started getting some traction about midway through the session that would have mandated mid-block crossing designations in many of our communities and along our roadways. And those had some unfunded mandates and would have been some significant hits to budgets, especially for local governments. And so we monitor these items, and during this next cycle, when we take these to the MetroPlan Orlando board, coming out of the executive committee meeting, Chair Janer and the executive committee members wanted to take a closer look and revisit each of these items to ensure or give us direction as to whether their previous positions are still standing. There are several new board members that are coming on board at the February meeting, and so they just want to either reaffirm their stance, whether they oppose, whether they support, or whether they will take no position and just monitor those items. This last item here, executive agency action item, is one that we are also proposing to the board in this next cycle. It's a new approach that's being proposed. You'll note on your draft copy of the legislative priorities under the support category, about halfway down, there is an item that says that we would support legislation that recognizes that federal MPO planning funds not be regarded as state funds for the purposes of expenditure. We are recommending an approach to not go directly to the legislature with that, not just yet, but to have our team to work with the Department of Financial Services and Fdot to see if there could be an amicable resolution before bringing that up to the legislature. So we'll be working with the MPOAC and our lobbying team and other lobbying teams around the state to get an audience and a meeting with Department of Financial Services and DOT to resolve that. Something else that we are asking of the MetroPlan Orlando board is that the executive committee's role be expanded to allow them to give direction to staff and our team in Tallahassee for those fast and furious moving items that come in the last minute, and they may happen prior to the next convened MetroPlan Orlando board meeting. So we would be able to call on the executive committee, call a quick huddle, and get their reaction and direction, and be able to respond to those more, be more responsive to any of those quick moving items. We'll be taking these to the MetroPlan Orlando board on February 10th, and then the session starts on March 2nd and concludes on April 30th. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that is an overview of the draft priorities. I am prepared to answer any questions, or if there are any other items or issues that this committee would like to bring up to the MetroPlan Orlando board, we'll be taking note of that as well.
Excellent. Thanks again, Virginia. Anyone has any questions or suggestions for Ms. Virginia Whittington? I am looking through the hands and I don't see any. It is a breath of fresh air to have to request to extend the sunshine law to the virtual meetings. I think that will be a great thing. And it'll, as you mentioned, Virginia, will motivate a lot of public participation that otherwise may have been a little bit more complicated. for the public to participate.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can, I did neglect to mention one thing that came up in the previous meeting, and that was for the engineers and planners who are a part of this committee, if your local community, local governments have taken a position in terms of the red light camera legislation, whether there's a support or opposed view, we would like to hear that as well. So if you would send me an email, just letting me know where you stand, or where your government stands, we'll be able to report that to the MetroPlan Orlando board and help them during their deliberations and revisit of those items.
Excellent. There's our chance. Thanks again, Virginia. Did you want to elaborate a little bit on the question that came up in the TISMO meeting? There was a bit of echo and I wasn't able to hear the answer. Perhaps a few of us had experienced the same as far as the BVF, best foot forward requirement at some point in the future to be able, or expectation in the future by BVF for local governments to participate in their funding in the future.
All right, thank you for bringing that up again. There was a brief discussion having to do with whether some of the smaller communities may be required to participate financially. At this point, we are not asking for that. MetroPlan Orlando is only able to commit funds that we are giving to Best Foot Forward and Bike Walk Central Florida. Once we have determined that we have a Senate and House sponsor for the appropriations request, then we will kind of begin to talk about who would be the beneficiaries of those. And I understand from Dr. Brock that conversations are already happening with Bike Walk Central Florida and some of the smaller communities for what those obligations may be, but MetroPlan Orlando does not have any control over those.
Excellent. Thanks again. Moving on, there are no TAC only presentations this time. I want to bring your attention to that there are several items under general information in tab 5 of your agenda packet. I also, if you have not printed it or seen it, you might want to prepare yourself for the next meeting, which is under tab 3. There's a lot of valuable information for the project prioritizing presentation, a priority presentation that would be done by Mr. Leb in our next meeting in February. So you might want to have that. I found that to be a very handy piece of information for all of us. Our next meeting, speaking of our next meeting, is going to be in February 26th. The next MetroPlan board meeting is going to be held on February the 10th. And it's going to be a hybrid meeting whereby a number of staffs will be a number of commissioners will be present on the board, and others will may not be physically present. They'll be participating virtually. Does any member of our board have any comments at this point? Please use the raise hand function if you have any comments so we can try to address them. Okay, hearing none. Are there any public, if there's any members of the public wish to make any comments at this point, please use the raise hand function and you'll be recognized. Also on your phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and we'll unmute your mic once you're recognized. Please state your name and contact information for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Are there any written or phone comments that were received or submitted prior to this meeting?
No, there were none.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Caskey. Thank you for all attendees and the TAC members for your tentativeness and your participation. Please be safe. And at this time, if there are no other questions or business, I hold this meeting adjourned. Thank you.